Hello, everybody. It's Robert Alaniz again, and this is Collecting the King. You know, after a long three-part series, interview series with Al DeVorn's son, James, I thought it might be a good idea to get back to, the regular format of the show. So this show we're going to be calling Where Do I Go From Here? As I've said before, I really don't care what anyone collects. Whatever you want to collect is fine with me. The things I say on the show are not a criticism in any way of how you collect or what you collect. The show basically is just here to kind of inform you about things that I know about or things I'm learning about, because collecting Elvis is kind of like an ongoing process. You're always learning, and that's what's happening. After working on, I think, 4 editions of Presley-Anna, I've been monitoring the world of Collecting the King for quite some time, and I always try to keep up with what's going on. Collecting things in the 21st century are not like they were 40-something years ago when I first started doing shows in Memphis, Tennessee. Let's say you've been collecting Elvis LP releases for a while, and you've got all the originals except for the super hard ones to find and most valuable, like Speedway Mono, Gold Records 4 Mono. I would say Clambake Mono, but Clambake Mono is getting a little bit more common. To be honest with you, I think Double Trouble Mono or Monaural, in my opinion, worth more than Clambake Monaural used to be worth. So if you've collected just about everything up to that point, and even ventured into the records at one time that we thought were like, not desirable or not really that important to collect, and I'm talking about everything after Elvis died on vinyl. As a collector, where do you go from there? Since the return of vinyl in the 21st century, Elvis vinyl collectors are now searching for record pressing variations that at one time were ignored or not considered worth collecting. That might explain why there's so many new trends in collecting. So let's talk about some of those things. First of all, I want to talk about the rigid and the flex vinyls. Sometimes I wish Jerry Osborne never came up with those terms when describing the differences in the original pressings in the 60s and then when RCA switched over to the flexible vinyls, because now I'm hearing that term all the time. I just saw recently somebody found a 1976 dog near top black label. They were all excited because it was rigid. Now, of course, at one point in time, RCA stopped putting Dynaflex on the label, but they continued to make their records flexible. And this is all marketing. I mean, they were just trying to find something new, and I've talked about this before, to sell these flexible vinyls, even saying they were better and everything, when the sound really wasn't any better because of the fact they were thinner and the needle couldn't sit in the groove as well. There is no rhyme or reason to random factory pressings by the mid-70s. But there were, variations, because by that time it wasn't important anymore for Dynaflex, and they started using more vinyl again. Different plants did different things. So to get excited about finding a rigid black label dog near top from 76 or AFL 1 or anything past like 74, it's nothing to really get excited about, because it was just a simple matter of a factory thing where they decided to, use more vinyl, and that's it. Which leads me to talk about another thing, which is factory mistakes and RCA Victor mistakes. Somebody will find an Elvis record where, the label is crooked, or the ink is not, as dark on one label as it is on another, or a cover has, like I saw recently, a front cover had the back cover upside down on the back, the slick. Now, these are, factory errors. Are they worth a lot? If you're willing to pay a little bit more for a record that has a misplaced label or the printing is off, then fine. There's a particular record that I find really amusing, and that would be from Elvis Presley Boulevard. And it had a hype sticker on it, and it was a black-colored hype sticker. People finding it and saying, oh, I've got the rare purple version of that sticker. Well, here's my opinion, okay? that sticker, they just didn't use enough ink, or it was faded, because I remember finding one of those in the 90s, and it was from a record store where the record was in the window, and there was a lot of sunlight, so it was faded, and it looked purple or a dark blue. And I think that's all it is. I do not believe that RCA purposely made a purple sticker from Elvis Presley Boulevard. I just don't believe that. I mean, I've seen too many variations of that color. I would put that in the category of a factory error somewhere along the road. Now, as I said, factory errors are not all that big of a deal. They happen a lot, and God knows I have seen so many albums that have had those kind of factory errors. The big question is, what are the value of these mistakes? I do get emails every once in a while, or I'll run into a collector at a show or something, and they'll say, oh, I found this, I found that, I found that. What's it worth? So in a nutshell, factory mistakes, okay, are basically worth maybe a little bit more because of the notoriety of the mistake. I wouldn't say a lot, maybe 10% more, maybe 20. But you have to find a collector that's really into that kind of thing, or you know, it's just an oddball thing, and somebody just thought, oh, this is cool, I'm going to put it in my collection. Now let's get to the difference between a factory mistake and an RCA Victor mistake. Now, RCA Victor mistakes, those mistakes, I believe, have a lot of value to them, and obviously Jerry Osborne believed that too, because dating back all the way to the early Presleyanas, there were many, many records that RCA screwed up when they put them out, and it was an RCA mistake. And of course, those have always gone for more money because they were a screw up on RCA's part, not the factory. And I'll give you some examples. It's Now or Never. The 45, when it was first released, it had the incorrect take pressed on, I believe, on the very first ones. And then they noticed that there was this mistake RCA had made, so they decided to put the correct take. And the difference between the takes can be determined, of course, by the trail-off number or something on the trail-off, and I'm not familiar with what that is exactly. But I do know the correct version has the piano accompaniment on the record, whereas the first ones, the mistake ones, did not. Another one would be the alternate take of Old Shep on Elvis's second album, the LPM 1382. That was another RCA mess-up, where they accidentally put an alternate take of Old Shep on the pressing that they didn't intend to do. So again, this is another album that I think you can tell by the trail-off numbers, and again, I don't have that information in front of me, but I know for a fact that if you listen to them, the two different versions, you could definitely tell that they're two different versions. He sings a certain verse a different way on each take. If you have the one with the alternate take, that's the more valuable. Then there's, of course, the Band 1 through 12 label on the same album, where instead of them just putting 1, 2, 3, 4 in front of the songs, it says Band 1, Band 2, Band 3, Band 4. Now, that is also a RCA screw-up, or a variation that RCA is responsible for, which they ran for a short time and then changed it for some whatever reason they did. Then there's a Legendary Performer Volume 2. Now, this is from the 70s. A lot of people don't know about this one. You know, I was telling somebody about it not too long ago, and they weren't aware of it. Originally, on the Legendary Performer Volume 2, 2 songs were supposed to include the false starts, which means Elvis starts the song, they stop it, he starts it again, they stop it, and then he goes through with the final take. Those 2 songs are A Cane and a High Starch Collar and Such a Night. If you have the copy where those 2 do not have the false starts at the very beginning of the takes, then you have the incorrect pressing. You actually have the first pressing. Now, if you have a good eye, you can tell by looking at the album, and you can look at the beginning of the songs on the vinyl itself, and you can see these light impressions, like 3 little lines at the beginning of both of those songs. Those are the ones that have the false start. Now, if you have a copy without those lines, if it looks like they start and end perfectly, then you have the first pressing and the incorrect pressing of Legendary Performer Volume 2. And then finally, there's the famous RCA cover mistakes for LP fans only, the 1964 reissue, where they, for some odd reason, put the same cover on the front cover on both sides. Those are very rare and definitely valuable. Aloha from Hawaii, first pressings. They did not include the song titles on the back. It just said, includes 8 songs never recorded by Elvis before. Once they decided that people were having trouble knowing what was on the album, they released a second album cover right away and put the song credits on there. But what's most interesting about it, and I think I pointed this out in my Aloha from Hawaii show, the very first pressings of the album came out sealed and they had no stickers on them. Whether or not they're more valuable than the ones that follow, I think they are. I think being they're the first ones and they were obviously a cover that was changed right away, I think they are. But to find one sealed, never opened, that's the rarest. I have a copy of that. There's another oddball one that RCA made a mistake on. When they were changing the logos, the RCA logo, you remember the earlier pressings has RCA Victor with the Nipper. Good old Nipper, okay? One of the first albums to ever have the new RCA logo was the NBC TV special. And that's where RCA, what we call the block letters, on the left side of the cover and Victor on the right. When that change was going on, RCA screwed up on Gold Records Volume 4, so it would be worth more money than, say, the orange flex with the correct RCA and Victor on the cover. The factory mistakes, they would include label misprints, incorrect label placement on the vinyl, LP cover mistakes like random misplacement of the front and back slicks, and color errors in the printing of the covers or stickers. And there are more, of course, but those seem to be the main ones. But if there's historical significance to it, like, for example, Elvis Today and Promised Land, the first releases on tan were from the Midwest, and the orange labels were from the West Coast. That's significant, and that's historical. And that's why in my collection, I have one of each. I have one of the orange and one of the tan because they were both released as first pressings at the same time. Historically significant. I think the RCA Victor mistakes, those are big. They've always been big in Presleyanna from the very first book that came out in the 70s all the way through the years. And again, the LP double cover, the old Shep mistake, and anything that's an RCA Victor mistake, I think those are valuable, and I think that they will always hold more value down the road. And of course, to those collectors out there who don't really care about the value, then I guess it's no big deal whatsoever. So now let's take a look in the black box. I have some interesting things to show you. I have a few things in here that pertain to what I was talking about, and I'll show those first, okay? Here is another record that is an RCA variation, not a factory thing. This is the EP for King Creole Volume 2. And if you look at the record inside, okay, it has the side 1 on the left-hand side of the label. And it's a small letter side and then a big 1. I'm pretty sure that this is the way that the majority of these EPs were released. Here is another copy, King Creole Volume 2. But this one, the record is different. And I'm not sure why or how, but for some reason, on this label, the side 1 is on the right-hand side of the label, on both sides, side 1 and 2, but it says side, and it has a long dash and then a smaller 1 than the other label. Obviously, this is not necessarily a factory mistake. This is an RCA variation. So I guess I need to include the fact that RCA did variations, especially on 45s and EPs. Some of them have lines, silver line labels. Some of them, the print is different. Elvis Presley's different. The titles are different. So this is a good example of an RCA variation. Then another one that I wanted to point out is, well, this along the line of variations. I just recently got this, and I was thrilled to get this because it's so incredibly hard to find. I know a lot of people, probably thanks to my show, have been searching for the tan labels, right? Well, this is a tan label, all right? So you can see the tan label inside. But what's really cool about this variation, and I can't open it up because it's still in the shrink, and you can't see it, is it's the gatefold cover. So if the shrink wrap wasn't on here, I would be able to open this up and show you. It's a variation. It's not necessarily a factory mistake because these were not leftover covers. I mean, if it was a leftover cover, it would not have the RCA and the Victor and the blue border at the top. This was definitely done at the beginning of the Orange Flexes for this title, but for some odd reason they kept the gatefold cover just for a short period of time, and then went to the regular single pocket cover where the album comes out on this side. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay, and again, pertaining to the show, I had to show this because this was really unique. I showed this. This is Johnny B's favorite album. Everybody knows Roustabout is mine. This is Johnny B's favorite album. He was very tempted to get this from me until he saw how much it's worth in the book. Anyway, this is an RCA original cover from the 60s, but it is the orange rigid. Here's a combination where this is a really, really rare record anyway. I mean, an orange rigid of Fun in Acapulco, and I kid you not, is in the older version of Presleyana for $300. And I think the reason it's priced that high was because the movie soundtracks, most of them, are really hard to find, especially the albums that were not big sellers. But here's the cool thing. Speaking of factory screw-ups, okay, if you flip it over and take a good look, they screwed up the label. You'll notice that the black letters is offset, and the RCA and Victor are in the right place. So when they ran the black print over the orange label, it was off-centered. So does it increase the value of this record beyond what it was in the book? As I said before, because it's such an oddball thing, it's definitely worth a little more. So what would you say? In the book, maybe if it's $300 in the book, add about maybe $25 to it and say that it's like $325. I think that's a pretty good guess. But I thought I'd show this to everybody because when I found it, I didn't even realize it was a mistake. I think somebody was here looking at my records to buy, and I showed it to them, and they said, "Oh, look at the back label." So I thought this was worthwhile showing everybody. Okay, everybody knows this album, Elvis in Hollywood. This was a mail order album, which reminds me, I got to do a whole show on these albums because there's a lot of them where, RCA put out these compilations where you could order in. I have one of these in my collection, and the reason why, I'm not big on compilations, later ones, but this one, if you're a collector of early Elvis albums or albums up to the time he died, this one you want because Brookville Records, in cooperation with RCA, put out this 2-record set in 1976. This is the back cover. Now, you can see it's on the blue label, which is kind of weird because the blue label is usually exclusive to Camden albums, right? This book came inside the record as a bonus item when you bought the album through the mail. This is a booklet that is very similar to, I think, one of the tour booklets at the time because it has a lot of photos in it, of Elvis on tour and all that. The only thing that's different about it is that makes it different from the other book like this that was available as a tour book is the middle. Because in the middle would advertise Las Vegas Hilton. This instead advertises all of the movie soundtracks, being that this is kind of a greatest movie song collection. So that's the difference between the two books. And then on the back, it says, "Hear Elvis on RCA Records" in the lower left. But on the right, it said, "See Elvis in concert." That's just solid proof that this album came out in 1976. And in addition to that, this booklet came with it. The album came out in 76 as a double album on the blue label with the book and this little additional catalog which advertises the other Brookville albums that were available, including ones from, let's see here. There was an album called At the Hop, one called Leaders of the Pack, which these are various artists' albums, ironically, that did not include Elvis. Lawrence Welk, Liberace, big deal. But mostly I think this was put in here because on the back it advertises the other Brookville album, which also came out, I believe, in '76 before Elvis died. I guess they put it in here so if you want to order this, if you bought this Elvis album, you want to buy this one. Okay, now getting to my main point of all this, that's the first pressing. This album has a second pressing. And you might ask, okay, well, how do you know that? Well, it's a little hard to tell, being that the records are still blue on the inside. Nothing is different on the cover. Same front, same back, right? However, and you could say what you want about this. You could say it's a factory issue, but I don't think so, because the one true way you can tell, and I don't know if I can show it this way and where you can see the difference. If you look at the two albums, this being the first pressing and this being the second, the photo is faded. It's not as sharp and clear. It's also, the texture of the cover is not the same. This has a glossy cover. As you could tell, Elvis's picture is much more brilliant as far as clarity and everything. This one is not. It almost looks like a reproduction, a faded reproduction on the front and on the back. So I kind of have to revise what I said about this, about the cover of this album. Actually, this album, you can tell the difference between the original and the reissue because of the colors on the cover and the fact that one is a kind of a glossy and the other one is not. Both of these covers are terrible. I mean, they're like paper. You know, they're so incredibly thin. Although I think the reissue one is a little thicker. As a matter of fact, it is. That's another thing you could tell. The very first ones are really, really flimsy. And this one's a little firmer. But the main reason you can tell the difference, so the main way you can tell the difference is this book, all right, here, that came with the reissue, is a different book. It has basically all the stuff in the middle, the same thing. It has the Hollywood thing in the middle. But instead on the back says "Hear Elvis on RCA Records," but on the right-hand side, the "See Elvis in Concert" is gone. It says instead, "Our sincere thanks for your everlasting loyalty, Elvis, Vernon Presley, and the Colonel." So obviously, this book came out after Elvis died, because if you remember, the Colonel did all this promotion stuff where he included Vernon, like on the cover of Our Memories of Elvis, Volume 1. There was a picture of the Colonel and Vernon. But he used Vernon's name in some of the, promotional things after Elvis died. So this is probably from 1977. And it's a reissue. But I never thought that there was a second pressing or a reissue of Elvis in Hollywood. Very, very surprised. So you heard it here first, folks, unless you already knew. But there is a second pressing. So if you have this album in your collection, you might want to look at the book. If you look at the album and the cover looks a little unclear, and you have the book and it doesn't say "See Elvis in Concert," you have the reissue. And vice versa. If you have the other one, you have the original. Just some things I wanted to show you I thought were kind of cool. and things that pertain to the subject that we were talking about today. I am filming this show on the anniversary, I don't know how many years ago today, Elvis performed his last performance in Indianapolis. I wanted to send out some compliments to Paul Combs, ElvisRecords.com website. I'm a big fan of. I think it's like the #1 website for USA Elvis Presley records. He did a revamp of the website, and it's fantastic. He's added a lot of new variations, stuff that I wasn't even aware of. But it was funny because a lot of the stuff he did add were things that I had talked about on earlier shows. Things like reissues with different label variations and things of that nature. If you haven't checked out ElvisRecords.com and their new look, do it now. I spoke with Joe Tunzi, and he has a new book, which is called The Definitive Vinyl Artwork of Elvis Presley Volume 2 / The Back Covers. And it's a really cool book. I'm looking forward to getting it. I want it because it basically shows photos and everything from the back covers of all of Elvis's U.S. releases. So he'll be here to talk about that in a future show, probably pretty soon. And then I also wanted to mention that, Carol and I are planning on going to Memphis this year. I'm looking forward to going, and I'm not going to be there very long, but I hope to see some of you down there. I'd like to get some pictures with you if you're there that I could show on a future show, or you might want to get some pictures of me. I don't know. You'd probably rather have them of Carol, not me. We should be there, and if so, make sure you say hi. I get a lot of people say to me, especially after the last show with James DeVorn, they say, Robert, you have got probably one of the best YouTube channels on Elvis Presley that there is. How come you don't have more subscribers? And I don't know what to say. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe because I don't do them as often. Maybe mine are usually longer than the average, channel where somebody just talks on their phone for like 15 minutes. I don't know. I'm going on my 3-year anniversary this September of the heart surgery, and I just needed to do something while I was recovering. So I wasn't really doing it for monetary gain or anything like that. I was doing it because I love Elvis. I love collecting Elvis, and I love making films. So this kind of satisfies both of my passions. But whatever the case might be, I wish I knew the answer, folks. And I do want to thank all of you who are subscribers. So that about wraps up another show. I'm Robert Alaniz. This is the Collecting the King show. Thank you for watching, and I'm out of here again.
Robert has left the building. Thank you, and good night. Is that okay?